So now we're going to discuss the goal setting theory. So let's define first what is goal setting. So goal setting is something most people recognize as necessary for their success. By understanding this theory, students can effectively apply it to the goals they set. So goal setting, it's not really new to students because we have our goals, we have our grades, being in the Dean's Lister, or getting Latin honor. But it's not limited to students, it's also applicable in workplaces. So, the best way to set goals is to look into the pioneering research of Dr. Edwin Locke and another researcher who studied the effect of goal setting in the workplace, Dr. Gary Latham. His results supported exactly what Locke had found and the inseparable connection between goal setting and workplace performance. So in 1900s, Locke and Latham published their seminal work, A Theory of Goal Setting and Task Performance. They reinforced the need to set specific and difficult goals. So there are 5 principles of goal setting. To motivate, goals must have these 5 principles present. So the first is clarity. Clear goals are measurable and unambiguous. When goal is clear and specific, with a definite time set for completion, there is less understanding about what behaviors will be rewarded. So, a great example of this is when you put or when you procrastinate and you put in your to-do list all of the modules you need to accomplish in one night. So there is no definite time of completion for each module. So of course, problem arises like for example, natagalan ka sa isang module and you weren't able to answer all of the modules and all of it is due tomorrow, then it is a failure in goal setting because you did not set a definite time for each module, and just putting all of the modules in your to-do list to be done in one night, it's not measurable and it's very ambiguous. It's not doable. So it's not clear what can be done and what can't be done by that specific time. So the second is challenge. One of the most important characteristics of goals is the level of challenge. People are often motivated by achievement and they'll judge a goal based on the significance of the anticipated accomplishment. When one knows what she or he will be well received, there is a natural motivation to do a good job. When setting goals, make each goal a challenge. If an assignment is easy and not viewed as very important, then the effort may not be impressive. So, this principle highlights that we make each goal a challenge to treat all of our tasks with the same importance. Because if there is, as stated in the example, if an assignment is easy and not viewed as very important, then the effort may not be impressive. So you may not end up, or you may end up not doing well on a very simple task, like not giving it the same effort you don't give to much bigger tasks. Like there's a big possibility na the quality will be less than how you usually do. And number 3 is commitment. Goals must be understood and agreed upon if they are to be effective. It means that goals should be consistent and in line with the previous expectations. The harder the goal, the more commitment is required. If a goal is easy, there is no need of a lot of commitment to get it done. Working on difficult assignment means more likely to encounter challenges that require a deeper source of inspiration and incentive. So, this principle naman, it highlights that the harder the goal, the harder the commitment. So we need consistency, especially with tasks that require more of our focus and time in order to be done. Because there are really tasks that you can't do in one sitting. So you have to be consistent, but going back to the second principle, which is a challenge, we also need consistency, not only in the big tasks, but also in the smaller tasks. So the number four is feedback. This provides opportunities to clarify expectations, adjust goal difficulty, and gain recognition. It is important to provide benchmark opportunities or targets so individuals can determine for themselves how they are doing. So feedback, of course, it's used to monitor our progress, and it can also be um, a way to monitor our strengths or our area of improvements. And number five is task complexity. For goals or assignments that are highly complex, take special care to ensure that the work doesn't become too overwhelming. People who work in complicated and demanding roles probably have a high level of motivation already. However, they can push themselves too hard if measures are built into goal expectations to account for the complexity of task. It is therefore important to do the following: to give the person sufficient time to meet the goal or improve performance, and provide enough time for the person to practice or learn what is expected and required for success. So, this principle highlights that if there are tasks that are highly complex, you need special care. So my example for this is dividing the work into chunks so it doesn't get too overwhelming. As I said earlier, there are really tasks that can't be done in one sitting. And this principle naman, task complexity, there are really tasks that are really hard to do. So you need special care. Like you don't I feel like it's better if you don't do it in one sitting because it's overwhelming. It will be overwhelming and it may affect you negatively if you try to do it in one go. So there are measures that you should take, like giving sufficient time to meet that goal or task. And of course, if you practice, then you can do it easier. So, the whole idea of goal setting is to facilitate a person's success. It has to be made sure that the surrounding conditions inspire and allow people to accomplish their objectives. So, the next topic is taking care of one's health, stressors and responses. So, stress, what is stress? Stress is any factor that makes adaptation to an environment difficult for an individual to maintain a state of equilibrium between himself and the external environment. So, when ba tayo nasa-stress? When may sobra, stress occurs when we lose balance between ourselves and the external environment. So, di ba, we get stressed pag nasobrahan academics, pag nasobrahan na problems with our external environment. So there are many causes of stress. So stress includes a physical and mental response to meet the demands of the stressful event. These events or conditions that pull a strain on the individual are called stressors. So those events or things na nagkakos ng stress are called stressors. So going back to physical and mental response to stress, physical response, for example, is fatigue due to overworking, and mental response, for example, is anxiety from overthinking. Yep, to stressors. So these are situations that are experienced as perceived threat to one's well-being or position in life, when the challenge of dealing with which exceeds the person's available resources. So as I said earlier, stressors are the ones or the events that causes stress. So it is perceived threat to one's well-being. So there are two broad categories of stressors from the Center for Studies on Human Stress. So the first is physiological or the physical stressors. So these are the stressors that put strain on the body. For example, very cold or hot temperature, injury, chronic illness or pain. And the second is the psychological stressor, or the events, situations, individuals, comments, or anything we interpret as negative or threatening. For example, not being able to review your notes for the exam as you are taking care of your sick parent in the hospital. Another example for this is actually just any experience that we interpret as negative. Like if it affects us negatively, it's a stressor. So moreover, scientists are now proposing that stressors can be further divided into two. So, absolute stressors, those which everyone exposed would interpret as being stressful. So, these are objective stressors that are universal. So, for example, is earthquake, a tsunami, or events of September 11th, 2001. So, absolute stressors, everyone na ma-experience those stressors, they would agree na stressful talaga siya. So everyone would agree that that event is stressful. While relative stressors are those to which only some persons exposed would interpret as being stressful. So these are subjective stressors that cause different reactions in different people. For example, time pressure at work, school traffic, paying taxes or bills, writing or taking an exam. So relative stressors naman subjective. So as it says, people react differently. Example of this is time pressure at work. So some people works well with pressure, some people doesn't. And another example is writing or taking an exam. So, of course, if you studied, it's not a stressor to you. Like taking the exam isn't a stressor to you. But if you came unprepared, it becomes a stressor. It becomes a stressor. So, that's relative stressors. It's different with every person. So, Folk explains when danger is perceived, the body's emergency system automatically changes the body's balance by producing the stress response, also called the emergency response, the fear response, or the fight or flight response. So, this change of balance, emergency readiness, is brought about via hormones, chemical messengers that are secreted into the bloodstream. So, let's discuss fight or flight response. Fight response is when you experience a problem and you decide to face it, while flight you decide to like get away from it. For example, um choosing to be distracted than facing the actual problem. So that's fight or flight. So because stress hormones travel to many target locations in the body, the stress response causes many physiological, psychological, and emotional changes, such as energizing the body, heightening our awareness of and reaction to danger. It elevates heart rate, changes breathing, stimulates the nervous system, heightens our senses, tightens our muscles, changes stomach and digestive function, changes brain functioning, constricts blood vessels, and changes blood flow. So, what's common to me is that the one that changes stomach and digestive function. So there are people na pag kinakabahan, like sumasakit yung tiyan nila. I don't know why, but it's a reaction to that, to the stress. So there are also sources of coping. The term coping is the process of attempting to manage the demands created by stressful events that are appraised as taxing or exceeding a person's resources. So, we all know this coping mechanism. That's the term today. So, it's like how we choose to manage our stress. So, like, what do we do with our stress? So, among the coping resources to improve the ability to manage stressful events and better health outcomes include optimism, psychological control or mastery, self esteem, and social support. So, let's discuss each. Optimism refers to the outcome expectancies that good things rather than bad things will happen to the self. So, optimism, when you hear it, it's like, you're so optimistic. In simple words, like you tend to focus more on the good things and thinking that good things will happen rather than the bad things. So, personal control or mastery refers to whether a person feels able to control or influence outcomes. So, this naman, personal control, it explains like practice in able to influence outcomes. So the next is self-esteem. So self-esteem that is positive and high is also protective against adverse mental and physical health outcomes, thereby contributing to better psychological well-being. So self-esteem is often defined as an individual's self-perception of his or her abilities, skills, and overall qualities that guides and or motivates specific cognitive processes and behaviors. So self-esteem, we all know that when you're confident, you're less likely to stress about, for example, work. Because you know that you're able, like you're confident in your abilities and you know you can do it. So the last is social support, which is defined as the perception or experience that one is loved and cared for by others, esteemed and valued, and part of social network of mutual assistance and obligations. So social support naman refers to our social support system, our emotional support system, such as our families, our friends. So we cope involving them. Like, it's not really using them, but more like going to them for comfort. Ganon. So that's how we cope. So that's all for our coping mechanisms.